Before we begin, remember, you're about to step into a place where the rules are reversed, where prison guards stand outside, and every cell is bought like a condo. If you think you've seen what a prison looks like, think again. In the heart of La Paz, Bolivia, there lies a monolithic block of concrete, iron, and secrets, San Pedro Prison. Rising high above the city's streets, its walls encircle what appears at first glance like any other penitentiary, but inside, it is anything but. Originally built for a few hundred inmates, San Pedro now houses thousands. The compound contains neighborhoods, markets, bars, even families living alongside convicted criminals. It is a prison, yes, but it is also a city devoted to its own rules, its own economy, and its own brutal side. Most prisons assign you a cell. At San Pedro, you buy one. Arriving inmates must purchase or rent their accommodation from other inmates or real estate agents within the compound. The cost varies wildly. Simple bunk rooms for those with almost no funds, luxury multi-floor apartments for those with resources. Inside one sector, known as La Posta, inmates live with kitchens, cable television, private bathrooms. Money talks here. In other wings, men line up for a mattress on the floor or sleep under a stairwell. The result? A prison economy. Markets operate inside the walls. Restaurants and barbershops exist. Children play in the courtyards. The lines between incarceration and everyday life blur. One of the most haunting realities of San Pedro is that wives, children, sometimes entire households share the prison walls with inmates. The women leave the compound during the day, return at dusk. Children attend nearby schools or creches on site. Imagine a father convicted of a crime, living in a cell with his family, the child playing just outside the communal dining hall, the wife cooking in a small kitchen. A place built to punish instead holds life, messy, dangerous life. Inside these walls, guards are few. Real authority is held by inmates themselves. Each sector elects leaders, treasurers, representatives. They regulate everyday conduct: who pays rent, who sells food, who gets stabbed for violating community law. On the surface, it is autonomy. On the underside, it is chaotic and violent. Violence is common. Cell blocks fight. Stabbings happen. Children are vulnerable. Yet state authorities intervene, rarely. They observe, guard the perimeter, ensure no one walks out. What happens within is mostly left to the inmates. Inside the walls of San Pedro, commerce runs. Drug labs operate. Shops, restaurants, gambling, real estate deals, all thrive. Cocaine is processed, sold. Some of the purest in Bolivia originates here. The illegal blends with the legal. A bakery next to a drug workshop. A boutique next to a knife fight. Tourism once happened too. Tours of the prison for paying visitors, until authorities cracked down. The place fascinated foreigners precisely because it was so bizarre. A prison where you could buy a cell, attend a party, gamble, even spend a night as a tourist. For some inmates, San Pedro is survival. For others, it is hell. With thousands under one roof, many awaiting trial for months or years, overcrowding extreme, health conditions dire, children living among convicted criminals, families trapped, lives stunted. One inmate described it simply: it's like a slum with walls. Others spoke of fear, of vulnerability, of being prey when they cannot pay rent for a cell. The prison, built to contain crime, became a place that facilitated it. As dusk falls over La Paz, the lamps inside San Pedro glow. In the courtyard, children call out as laundry dries on lines strung between stairwells. In one cell, a family sits down to dinner. In another, a man counts bills from a drug deal. Above it all, the high wall stands, a reminder of who is contained and who really controls. This is not a conventional prison. It's a mirror, reflecting society's extremes: inequality, power, corruption. And we're only at the beginning. In most prisons, the guards decide everything: who eats, who sleeps, who lives. In San Pedro, it's the inmates who make the rules. Welcome to a city inside a wall, a world built on crime, currency, and quiet chaos. San Pedro Prison isn't one single block. It's divided into 8 sectors, each with its own reputation, economy, and level of danger. There's La Posta, known for luxury, clean courtyards, painted walls, tiled bathrooms, and inmates who can afford comfort. Businessmen, white-collar criminals, and drug traffickers with deep pockets. Then there's Pinos, rougher, louder, filled with pickpockets and gang members. Down its narrow corridors, graffiti marks territories. Violence breaks out over unpaid debts or stolen goods. At the bottom end is Cancha, the poorest area, cells without roofs, mattresses shared by three, rats running underfoot. Here, you survive by favor or fear. Each sector has its own elected leader, called the delegate, who collects monthly fees, mediates disputes, and enforces justice. It's self-governance, born from necessity. We don't have guards here, one inmate explained. We have us. If you break the rules, we handle it our way. Everything inside San Pedro has a price tag. Need a place to sleep? Pay rent. Need protection? Pay your delegate. Need food? Buy from the market stalls inside the courtyard. Money flows freely. U.S. dollars, Boliviano, even mobile payments from outside. Families bring cash during visits. Smugglers deliver goods through guards, who often turn a blind eye for a fee. At the top of the chain are the rich inmates, those running restaurants or controlling drug operations. They hire others to cook, clean, and protect them, creating an internal class system. A man with money can live comfortably in San Pedro, with a TV, stove, refrigerator, and even internet access. A man without money, meanwhile, might sleep in a hallway corner, relying on scraps. It's capitalism at its rawest form. No law, no regulation, only survival. Step into the courtyard on a typical day, and you'd swear you weren't in a prison at all. Vendors shout prices, children chase soccer balls, and men grill meat on open flames. There's a bakery, a barber, a tailor, a cell phone repair shop, all run by inmates. In the early 2000s, an estimated 60% of inmates had some form of employment inside. The economy was strong enough that some prisoners supported families outside the walls. And hidden among these legitimate businesses, there's another layer: cocaine. San Pedro's proximity to Bolivia's coca-producing regions made it an ideal base for processing. Within the walls, small laboratories operate in secret, sometimes with the knowledge of guards. The purest paste cocaine, known locally as pasta basica, is refined inside. Dealers distribute it within the prison or smuggle it out through visitors. The drug trade fuels San Pedro's wealth, its violence, and its hierarchy. For years, San Pedro was not just a prison, it was a tourist destination. Backpackers in La Paz whispered about the prison tour, an illegal experience where visitors could pay inmates to guide them through the compound. They'd walk past cells, meet prisoners' families, even share a meal or a drink inside the courtyard. Some tourists described it as thrilling, others called it terrifying. The most famous account came from British traveler Rusty Young, who entered San Pedro and later wrote the best-selling book, Marching Powder. It exposed the surreal world inside. Prisoners selling cocaine to tourists, guards ignoring the trade, and inmates living with their families as if in a walled village. Authorities eventually cracked down on these tours, banning visitors after media attention. But even now, locals say, with the right connection and enough money, outsiders can still get in. Without guards inside, justice at San Pedro follows its own logic. If someone steals, the delegate decides the punishment. If someone kills, the inmates form a tribunal. And the sentences are swift and brutal. Some punishments include beatings, solitary confinement, or forced labor. In extreme cases, vigilante executions occur, thrown from balconies or stabbed in the yard. It's a code of silence. Police rarely intervene. They stand at the gates, ensuring no one escapes, but what happens inside stays inside. The prisoners say this system works, because fear keeps order where law does not. Out there, they have laws. In here, we have rules, and ours are faster. Perhaps the most haunting image of all, children growing up inside these walls. During the day, they play soccer, chase each other through corridors, and study in makeshift classrooms. At night, they sleep beside fathers who may never leave. Some kids are born inside. Others arrive because their mothers cannot afford to live outside while visiting. For these children, San Pedro is home, the only world they know. They learn to navigate danger early. They know which hallways to avoid. They know when to hide during fights. NGOs have long demanded reform, calling the practice a violation of human rights. Yet for many families, the alternative, homelessness, feels worse. It's a moral gray zone that haunts the conscience of Bolivia to this day. Despite the violence and chaos, religion flourishes here. Churches have been built within the prison, evangelical, Catholic, even indigenous spiritual centers. Faith offers structure in a world without law. Every Sunday, hymns echo through the corridors, songs of repentance, hope, and denial. For some inmates, religion becomes the only form of rehabilitation. For others, it's a currency, a performance for leniency or protection. Still, in the midst of corruption, many genuinely find peace. A place where one good deed can outweigh years of guilt. By evening, San Pedro slows. Smoke from food stalls fills the courtyard. Radios hum with Bolivian music. Men gather to gamble or trade stories. At 9 p.m., lights dim, not by rule, but by choice. The day is done. Yet even in this strange peace, danger never sleeps. Debt disputes turn violent. Smugglers make secret runs. The air hums with the tension of freedom contained. From above, the prison looks like a single, silent block. But inside, it's alive, breathing, scheming, surviving. Autonomy comes with a cost. For every man who thrives in San Pedro's underground economy, another suffers under its violence. For every family that shares a meal, another grieves a loss. This is not just a prison. It's an experiment in human nature. Remove the guards, remove the law, and what's left? A city built on crime, powered by desperation, ruled by those with the most to lose. They called it the world's strangest prison, a place with no guards inside, no order but what the prisoners built. But empires, even hidden ones, never last forever. By the late 2000s, San Pedro's fame had become its curse. Bolivia's government could no longer ignore the stories of drugs, tourists, and a prison that functioned more like a marketplace than a correctional facility. Journalists smuggled out photographs of inmates holding infants, of children playing beside cocaine stalls, of tourists grinning for photos with convicted traffickers. For years, officials denied it all, claiming the media exaggerated. But the truth was impossible to contain. Reports surfaced of prisoners dying during fights, of guards extorting families at the gates, and of an entire prison economy producing more drugs than some outside towns. The world began to watch. And when the spotlight hit San Pedro, the cracks spread fast. By 2010, Bolivia was trying to clean up its international image. President Evo Morales, a former coca farmer himself, had pushed for stronger anti-drug policies and tighter control over prisons. San Pedro, chaotic, lawless, and infamous, symbolized everything the government wanted to leave behind. Officials ordered inspections. New wardens were appointed. Foreign visitors were banned. But San Pedro wasn't just a prison. It was an economy that supported hundreds of families. Closing it down or reforming it meant cutting off livelihoods, inside and out. Resistance brewed from within. Delegates refused to surrender power. Guards, long profiting from bribes, turned a blind eye. Change was coming, but not peacefully. One humid night in 2013, violence exploded. A dispute between two rival factions in the Pinos sector ignited into a riot. Inmates armed themselves with makeshift weapons, knives, sticks, and broken pipes. The fire began in one cell and spread quickly. When guards tried to intervene, they were forced back by the chaos inside. Dozens were injured. At least 30 prisoners died, many burned alive before firefighters could reach them. The world watched in horror. Footage showed smoke billowing from the compound as families outside screamed for their loved ones. The riot exposed the truth. San Pedro was no longer just a prison. It was a powder keg. The 2013 riot changed everything. The government immediately suspended prison officials, arrested several guards, and sent riot police to regain control. For the first time in decades, uniformed officers entered deep into the sectors, searching cells, seizing weapons, and relocating gang leaders. Dozens of inmates were transferred to other facilities, including Bolivia's high-security prisons like Chancacoro and Palmasola. The illegal tours stopped completely. Journalists were barred from entry. What had once been an open secret became a locked fortress. San Pedro's gates, once teeming with families, fell silent. "The prison lost its soul," said one former inmate. "It used to be a city. Now it's a graveyard of memories." The crackdown hit the inmates hardest, but it devastated their families too. For years, San Pedro had allowed wives and children to live inside. Now, with tighter restrictions, they were forced to leave. Some found shelter in La Paz. Many didn't. Without their imprisoned husbands' small businesses, they faced poverty. Children who'd grown up in San Pedro, who called it home, suddenly became outsiders in a world they didn't understand. Psychologists who studied them found deep trauma. Some had nightmares of police raids. Others missed the walls that once felt like safety. The closure of San Pedro's family system solved one moral problem, but created another: the invisible victims of reform. Even after the riot and reforms, San Pedro's economy never fully died. Smuggling, bribery, and drug trade continued in smaller, more secretive forms. The prison still had no guards inside the living quarters, only stationed at the perimeter. Delegates still collected fees. Money still decided your comfort. The difference was silence. No more tourists, no cameras, no journalists, just whispers of what the prison once was. To this day, ex-inmates describe it as a city buried alive, an empire that still breathes beneath its ruins. Ironically, some inmates didn't want to leave San Pedro. For them, it was freedom in a twisted way. You could work. You could see your family. You could even walk through open courtyards under the sun. Other prisons in Bolivia, like Chancacoro, meant isolation, concrete, and silence. So when the government began transferring prisoners, many protested. They weren't defending crime. They were defending their strange version of life. One inmate told a journalist, "In San Pedro, I was still a man. In Chancacoro, I'm just a number." Even years later, fascination with San Pedro never disappeared. Filmmakers, criminologists, and writers continued to document its story, a bizarre social experiment born from neglect. Rusty Young's Marching Powder became a cult classic, and documentaries from National Geographic, Vice, and Netflix later revisited its legacy. What they found was haunting, a place that once symbolized human failure, but also human adaptability. Because inside those walls, people had built a functioning, self-contained world. Flawed, brutal, but astonishingly human. San Pedro remains open today, smaller, stricter, and quieter. But its legend lives on because it asks a simple, terrifying question: what happens when you remove law and leave only human nature? Inmates built markets, homes, and communities, but also greed, violence, and inequality. It mirrored the world outside. Some sociologists now call San Pedro a microcosm of society, proof that even in confinement, humans rebuild the systems they know: power, money, and control. San Pedro was not chaos, one researcher said. It was civilization, without supervision. 10. The last lesson in the end. San Pedro Prison tells us something about freedom. That it isn't just walls that imprison us. It's the systems we create, even when we think we're free. The inmates built a world inside stone walls. A world with markets, laws, and families, all born from desperation. But the same forces that built it destroyed it. Money, power, corruption, they didn't stay outside. They grew inside. And when the fire came, the illusion of freedom burned with it. Behind those rusted gates in La Paz stands more than a prison. It's a mirror, showing us what happens when order collapses and humanity takes over. San Pedro was a warning, because if a prison can become a city, maybe a city can become a prison.